A luxury car pulled into a street that didn't belong to it. No valet, no marble lobby, just cracked sidewalks, leaning fence, and a building that looked like it had given up trying to impress anyone years ago. Behind the wheel, a woman in a tailored suit, hair perfect, jaw tight, hands shaking. Just a little. She glanced at the building, then at her phone. The notification read, Fremont Lofts, temporary residence. No one will find you here. Why would someone like her end up here? That is where this story begins, and if you enjoy stories like this, quiet ones, about imperfect people finding their way back to something real, consider hitting like or subscribing. It helps this little corner of the internet keep growing. Kind of like that tree you'll see later. Now, let me show you what happened. When a door jammed and a life came undone. The rain had no intention of stopping. It fell in long silver threads, turning the city into a blur of reflections and smeared headlights. Wipers moved back and forth, steady but useless against the relentless drizzle. Inside the car, silence weighed heavier than the rain. Elena Cross tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was not. A vibration from her phone broke the quiet. The screen lit up. Incoming call. Daniel, her attorney. She pressed the speaker button. Her voice came out clipped, almost mechanical. Talk. Daniel did not waste time. They found you, Elena. Reporters, 2 of them are camped outside your condo. Another one followed your assistant from the parking garage. She blinked, jaw tightening. Her fingers drummed against the leather wheel. The sound was sharp, controlled. Tell me you have a solution. A pause. The sound of Daniel flipping papers, then his voice returned, lower but firm. There's a place, Fremont District, 8th and Willow. A building vertex used for short-term housing during expansion. No one connects you to it. No paparazzi, no press. Go there, now. Elena exhaled through her teeth. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Nothing but blurry headlights and the city melting under the rain. Fine. Text me the code. Daniel's voice softened just a little. Elena, you need to lay low. You know how this works. Crisis feeds on visibility. Disappear first, then fight. She hung up without another word. Fingers moved to the GPS. Destination, Fremont District. Her thumb hovered for a second as if some part of her still resisted the idea of hiding. Then, click. Route calculated. As the car rolled forward, the glass towers of downtown faded in the rear view. Replaced by older streets, brick walls stained by time. Telephone poles leaning slightly, lined with moss and rust, a different city entirely. Quieter, forgotten by progress. The rain followed her anyway. The GPS announced the destination with its usual sterile tone. Elena pulled the car to the curb, cutting the engine. For a moment, she just sat there, staring through the windshield. This was it. The building stood in sharp contrast to everything she knew. 3 stories of old brick and faded paint, vines tangled across the south-facing wall. A crooked sign above the entrance read, Fremont Lofts, but half the letters were missing. Just F, M, T, L, efforts remained. No valet, no concierge, no glass facade reflecting the skyline. Only a narrow metal door with a keypad and a rusted handle. She stepped out of the car. Her heels clicked against cracked pavement. The sound felt loud here, almost intrusive. This wasn't the marble lobby of a downtown penthouse. This was something else. A delivery bike leaned against the stair railing. A laundry basket sat unattended by the doorway, half covered with a towel that had seen better days. Somewhere upstairs a dog barked, sharp and rhythmic. A man coughed behind a window that refused to close properly. Elena rolled her suitcase toward the door. The wheels stuttered over uneven concrete, bouncing against missing tiles. She punched in the access code Daniel had sent her. The lock resisted for half a second, then gave way with a reluctant buzz. Inside, the hallway smelled of old wood, faint detergent, and something else. Something lived in. Walls lined with faded photographs. A bulletin board sagged under the weight of handwritten notes. Garage sale flyers, babysitting offers, lost cat posters. For a brief second she stood there. Just stood. Her eyes moved over the imperfections. The chipped baseboards, the scratches on the floor, the distant hum of someone's TV behind a closed door. This place was not hers, but for now it had to be. She took a breath, tightened her grip on the suitcase handle, and walked toward the elevator. The elevator sat waiting at the end of the hallway, a battered metal box with a dull chrome door. Its surface was pitted, scarred with decades of keys, rings, and frustration. A single button glowed faintly, flickering like a tired eye struggling to stay awake. Elena pressed it. Nothing happened for a second. Then a reluctant ding followed by a slow, mechanical groan as the door slid open. The interior was worse, pale yellow walls, a cracked mirror on one side, and a stained rubber floor that still held the faint outline of something spilled, forgotten. She stepped inside, dragging the suitcase with her. The door struggled shut, metal grinding against metal. Her thumb hovered over the button panel. 3rd floor. The elevator lurched as it started moving, not gliding, not lifting, but stuttering, jerking upward like an old man climbing stairs. A single fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering between weak and weaker. Halfway between the 2nd and 3rd floor, everything stopped. No warning, no sound, just stopped. For a split second, the silence felt heavier than the motion ever did. Then the light snapped off, plunging everything into thick, oppressive black. A beat, two, then her breath caught. A sound escaped her throat, sharp, involuntary. Her hand shot out, fumbling for the button panel, fingers scanning cold plastic in the dark. Emergency button, found. She pressed it once, twice, 3 times. No response, only silence. Her chest tightened, a familiar tightness. She knew this feeling. No, she hated this feeling. Walls shrinking, air thinning, her palms damp, her pulse racing. Breathe, just breathe. The words came out barely above a whisper, but her voice betrayed her, shaking more than she liked. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to find something slid in the dark. But the dark had its own weight. It pressed from all sides, squeezing like an invisible fist. Another press on the emergency button. Nothing. Then louder now, her voice echoed against the metal walls. "Hello, is anyone there? Can someone hear me?" Her words bounced back, unanswered. Somewhere outside, distant, muffled, a child's voice floated through the gap in the door. "Daddy, someone's crying." Elena froze, heart pounding. She pressed her ear to the cold door, gripping the edges. A second voice, this time steady, calm, male. "Stay right here, kiddo." Footsteps approached. A new sound filled the shaft, fingers testing the seam of the door, then the unmistakable scrape of muscle against machine. Elena took a breath. It didn't help. The rain softened into a quiet mist as Luke Parker and his daughter Mia rounded the corner toward their building. Mia's small boots splashed through puddles without care. The plastic grocery bag swung from Luke's hand, half filled with cereal, milk, and a loaf of bread. It was a routine walk. Same cracked sidewalks, same flickering street lamp leaning over the intersection. But tonight something was different. As they stepped under the awning, Luke paused. His head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing. Mia caught it too, her fingers tightened around his sleeve. "Daddy, do you hear that?" A voice, faint, frantic, muffled but unmistakable. It echoed down the hallway, bouncing off the old bricks and peeling drywall. "Hello? Help, please. Is anyone there?" Luke's shoulders straightened, his instincts kicking in before his brain caught up. Years of listening for sounds that others missed. Engines failing, pressure valves hissing. Warning signals buried in chaos had sharpened his sense beyond most. He set the grocery bag down, scanned the hallway. The sound was coming from the elevator shaft. "Stay here," he said, his voice low but certain. Mia nodded, stepping back against the wall. Her eyes wide but trusting. Luke crossed the hallway in 3 measured steps. His hand ran along the elevator door's edge, feeling the vibration. Slight, but there. Someone was definitely inside. He pressed his ear against the cold metal. "Can you hear me?" he called, voice steady, firm, cutting through the thick air. From the other side, a woman's voice, shaken but hopeful, answered back. Yes, I'm stuck. The elevator stopped. It's dark. Okay, hold tight, Luke replied, already scanning the frame. I've got you. His eyes flicked down to Mia, who was clutching her raincoat with both hands. Daddy, can you fix it? Luke didn't answer, not yet, but his hands were already moving. Luke crouched, running his fingers along the narrow gap between the elevator doors. Decades of dust clung to the edges. The metal felt cold, stubborn, unwilling. He tapped the frame lightly, testing for weak points. Muscle was never enough on its own. Leverage, angles, pressure points. The military taught him that. Breakdowns didn't care if you were strong. They cared if you were smart. Mia hovered a few feet back, hands twisted in her raincoat, eyes glued to every move her father made. Is she okay, Daddy? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. She will be, Luke said. Calm, focused, his hands never stopped moving. He scanned the hallway quickly. A mop bucket. A bent metal sign warning about wet floors, that would do. Luke grabbed the sign, tore it from its plastic base, bent it across his knee until the aluminum warped into a crude wedge. Not perfect, just good enough. He jammed the makeshift tool into the seam where the two elevator doors met, his boots planted firmly against the tile. Gripping both edges of the door, he pulled. Nothing. A grunt escaped him, not frustration, just effort. His shoulders rolled back, muscles tensed under the weight of years. He pulled again, adjusting the angle, letting the wedge bite deeper. The door shifted, a whisper, a groan, then a screech of protesting metal as it opened an inch. 2, 4. Through the growing gap, the smell of stale air rushed out, mixed with something sharper. Fear had a scent. Luke knew it well. From inside, the woman's voice cracked. Is someone there? Please, I can't breathe. Luke's tone softened, but the strength in it stayed. You're okay. I've got you. With one final surge, his arms trembled, his boots skidded slightly against the floor. The doors gave way, sliding open just enough to reveal the darkened interior, and a pair of terrified eyes staring back at him from the shadows. Can you move toward me? He asked. A beat, then a hand reached out. The gap was narrow, but enough. Luke reached in. His arm disappeared into the dark. His palm opened, steady, waiting. Take my hand, he said. Simple, firm, not a command, not a plea. Just certain. For a second, nothing happened. Inside the elevator, Elena sat frozen. Her fingers trembled, hovering inches from the help she wasn't sure how to accept. Not because she didn't want to, because when was the last time she had? But survival overrides Preed. Her hand shot forward, clutching his wrist, not a handshake. A grip, tight, desperate, fingernails pressing into skin. Good, Luke murmured. Hold on, I've got you. His other hand braced the door frame, knees bent back tight. One pull, two, a grunt rolled through his chest as he shifted her weight, guiding, lifting. Her heels scraped the edge of the floor. One shoe slipped off, tumbling back into the dark. Then, with a final heave, her body toppled forward into the hallway. Elena collapsed against him. Her breath hitched, arms instinctively clutching whatever was solid, his jacket, his shoulder. The ground wasn't steady yet, but he was. For a moment, neither moved. Then a smaller voice cut through. "See? Told you. My daddy can fix anything." Mia stood nearby, arms crossed, watching like it was the most normal thing in the world. Elena blinked, her head tilted toward the sound, then to Luke, and something shifted. A crack in the tension. Her lips twitched. The corner of her mouth almost smiled. Luke offered no comment, just steadied her. One hand on her elbow, the other hovering like he wasn't sure whether to step back or keep holding on. "You're okay," he said, his voice softer now, rough but kind. For the first time in what felt like forever, Elena nodded. She was, sort of. Morning came, softer than expected. The rain had faded. Only damp sidewalks remained, shining under pale sunlight. Elena stood outside the door marked 2B, a plain wooden slab with peeling numbers. In her hands was a small white box tied with a ribbon. A peace offering she wasn't entirely sure how to deliver. She raised her hand to knock, hesitated then did it anyway. 3 taps, firm but polite. The door swung open almost instantly. Mia appeared first, messy curls, mismatched socks, and a grin that belonged to someone who had never doubted the world for a second. "Hi," Mia chirped. "You found us." Before Elena could answer, Luke's voice floated from deeper inside. "Mia, don't open the door without—" He appeared mid-sentence. Shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow, a smudge of grease on one forearm. His eyes landed on Elena. A flicker of surprise, then guarded neutrality. Elena cleared her throat, adjusting the box in her hands. "I wanted to say thank you for last night." Luke nodded once. No ceremony, no need for it. Mia, meanwhile, stepped aside with the casual authority of someone who believed grown-ups should figure things out on their own. "Do you want to come in?" Luke asked, voice measured. No pressure, no invitation either. Elena glanced past him. The apartment was unexpected. Shelves lined with old tools, mechanical parts, and half-assembled projects. A worn leather couch. A wooden dining table scarred by time but polished clean. The smell of coffee, faint and grounding. It was lived in, real, everything her glass and steel penthouse wasn't. "I won't stay long," she said, stepping over the threshold anyway. The door clicked shut behind her. Mia tugged at Elena's sleeve before anyone could say more. "Wanna see my robots?" she asked, already turning without waiting for an answer. Elena blinked, then followed. Down the short hallway, Mia's room opened like a portal into another universe. Cardboard towers, shelves stacked with gears, springs, wires. A half-built mechanical arm rested on a wooden desk cluttered with sketches drawn in colored pencil and crayon. Next to it, an old soldering iron sat cooling on a ceramic tile. "Dad helps me with the heavy parts," Mia explained, picking up a tiny rover fashioned from an old RC car and soda can lids. "But the ideas are mine." Elena crouched, fingertips grazing the edge of the desk. The craftsmanship was not perfect, but clever, resourceful, full of intention. "That's impressive," she said, meaning it more than she expected. From the doorway, Luke leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching quietly. "She's stubborn," he said. "Doesn't like instructions, just figures it out." Elena stood, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. "Wonder where she gets that," she muttered, half to herself. Luke's mouth twitched. Maybe a smile, maybe not. Back in the kitchen, mugs clinked. Luke poured coffee, handing one to Elena without asking how she liked it. Black, straight, simple. They stood there a moment. Two strangers sharing the same square footage, but nothing else. Luke broke the silence first. "So, what exactly do you do?" His tone was neutral, polite, but edged with something, curiosity or caution, maybe both. Elena sipped, considering, then answered, "CEO, Vertex Innovations, Medical Tech." His brow lifted just a hair. "Big company." "Big enough," she said. A pause. "I manage crises. Or try to." Luke nodded. Neither approval nor judgment, just processing. "Never met a CEO stuck in an elevator before," he said. The words were casual. The look wasn't. Elena met his eyes, unflinching. "Me neither," she replied. The air shifted. Not in any dramatic way, no sharp words, no raised voices, just something subtle. A line neither of them had noticed was suddenly there. Luke set his coffee down slower than necessary. His eyes flicked, desk, window, floor, anywhere but her for half a second, then back. "CEO," he repeated, like testing how the word fit coming from his mouth. Elena didn't flinch, just nodded. "Yeah." A long beat stretched between them, long enough for the hum of the refrigerator to become louder than it had any right to be. Luke finally crossed his arms, leaning against the counter. His gaze was steady, but the warmth from earlier pulled back. Not gone, just cautious. "You don't seem like one," he said. Elena's brow lifted. "No?" Most CEOs I've met don't end up in busted elevators or show up at places like this. Fair, she admitted. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. But desperate times. Mia's voice floated from her bedroom. Dad, where's the hot glue? Top drawer, Luke called back, not looking away from Elena. Silence settled again, not hostile, but not comfortable. Elena stood straighter, adjusting her coat like she suddenly remembered who she was supposed to be. I should let you get back to your day, she said. Luke didn't argue, just nodded once. As she reached for the door, Mia popped her head out. Bye. Come back soon, okay? Elena managed a small smile. Maybe. The door clicked shut behind her, and for a reason she couldn't quite name. The hallway felt colder than it had when she arrived. The knock came mid-morning, soft, hesitant. Not the kind of knock that expected bad news, but not entirely sure of good news either. Elena set her tablet aside. Spreadsheets still flickered across the screen. She opened the door and found Mia standing there, small hands tucked behind her back, cheeks pink from the morning chill. Hi, Mia said, rocking on her heels. I made something for you. Before Elena could respond, Mia pulled a piece of cardstock from behind her back. White, folded, covered in scribbles of marker, glitter glue, and uneven stickers. A handmade invitation. The front read, mostly legible, Birthday party! You're invited! Mia smiled wider, lifting it toward her like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I'm turning 7 on Saturday. We're having cake and science experiments. Dad said I could invite neighbors. Elena took the card, her thumb running over a glitter star half peeling at the corner. Something in her chest tightened. Small, unfamiliar. Science experiments? She echoed. Mia nodded, curls bouncing. Yeah, I'm making a volcano and maybe slime. Dad's doing the cake, see? It's gonna look like a rocket. You should come. You live here now. For a second, Elena stood there, not knowing exactly what to say. No one had invited her to anything without an agenda in years. Your dad knows you're inviting me? She asked carefully. Mia shrugged. Kinda. But I made the card, so it's official. The smile threatened to crack Elena's usual composure. Against her better judgment, she heard herself say it. All right, I'll be there. Mia beamed. Cool, see ya. She skipped back down the hallway, leaving Elena at the doorway, staring at the card and wondering what exactly she'd just agreed to. Saturday arrived with sunlight, the rare kind that made the damp streets of Fremont look almost charming. Elena stood at the door of apartment 2B, holding a neatly wrapped box. Inside, a beginner robotics kit. She wasn't entirely sure if it was the right choice, but it felt close enough. She knocked. The door opened, and chaos spilled out. Children, maybe 5, maybe 6, all gathered around the living room, wearing paper hats, safety goggles. Their hands were deep in bowls of cornstarch and food coloring. Laughter bounced off the walls like ricocheting marbles in the kitchen. Luke stood behind the counter, wearing an apron that said "Science Dad" in peeling vinyl letters. His hands were dusted with flour. He glanced up, eyebrows lifting at the sight of her. "You came," he said, half surprised. "I said I would," Elena replied, stepping inside. Mia spotted her instantly. Grinning, she dashed over, tugging her by the wrist. "Come here, we're making slime. You have to try." Elena hesitated, but the tug was insistent, and before she knew it, she was at the table, hands dipped into something sticky, squishing between her fingers. Laughter bubbled, real, unplanned. Luke watched from the kitchen, amused, a little disarmed. The cake came next, a masterpiece. If you defined masterpiece loosely, it was unmistakably a tank, frosted in green, Oreo cookies for wheels. Mia clapped her hands, delighted. "Best cake ever," she declared. The kids sang. Candles were blown out, wishes made afterward. As the sugar high mellowed and parents arrived to collect their kids, Elena found herself lingering, picking up stray cups, folding napkins, not out of obligation, but something else. Luke wiped his hands on a dish towel. "Didn't think CEOs were the slime-making type," he said, half teasing. "Neither did I," Elena admitted, brushing a smear of purple goop from her sleeve. For a moment, neither spoke, and for reasons neither quite understood. It wasn't uncomfortable, not at all. The last of the kids had gone. Silence returned, but a softer kind, not empty, just quieter. Elena bent to pick up a stray paper plate near the bookshelf. As she reached, her hand brushed against a folder, wedged between stacks of old magazines and loose sketches. It wasn't curiosity. Not exactly, more like reflex. Fingers slid it free. A logo stared back at her. Vertex Innovations. Her breath hitched. Her thumb hesitated on the edge. She opened it. Slow, as if the weight of it already hinted at what was inside. Technical diagrams, notes, a full proposal at the top, a title. Adaptive interface for assisted mobility. Below, her eyes scanned faster than her mind could keep up. Modular designs, interface schematics, notes in tidy, precise handwriting. She flipped a page and then another until her gaze caught on something colder. A letter, formal, corporate. "Dear Mr. Parker, thank you for your submission to Vertex Innovations. After careful review, we regret to inform you." The rest blurred. She knew the language, knew it by heart, knew because she had signed letters exactly like this. Her fingers tightened, jaw clenched. A voice broke the spiral. "You weren't supposed to see that." Elena turned sharply. Luke stood a few feet away, arms crossed. His posture wasn't hostile, but it wasn't open either. Her mouth opened, closed, the words tangled. "This This was your design, she managed. Yeah, Luke said, simple, flat. About a year ago, a pause hung there, heavy, taut. You submitted this to Vertex, she said. Not a question, not really. Luke nodded once, and Vertex said no. Another nod, her hands lowered, folder still in her grip. Neither of them said what both were thinking. Not yet, but something had shifted. Irreversibly, the silence stretched, long enough to be uncomfortable, long enough for both of them to know that pretending not to notice was no longer an option. Elena's fingers loosened around the folder. She placed it carefully on the table as though setting down something fragile or explosive. Her throat tightened. Still, she forced the words out. I signed this. Luke didn't react. No blink, no shift, just still. I was the final reviewer, she continued, voice thinner than she liked. It crossed my desk. Luke's jaw worked, a subtle clench. His eyes stayed steady, clear, not angry, not yet, just unreadable. You're the one who killed it, he said. Matter of fact, no sharpness, which somehow made it worse. Elena closed her eyes for a beat. I didn't remember. Not until now. Convenient. A wince. Fair. I'm not proud of it, she admitted. Her arms folded, a poor shield. I reviewed dozens of proposals that month, maybe more. Your name, your project, it didn't even register. Luke shifted his weight, hands on his hips, a sigh, slow, deliberate. Yeah, I figured as much. A long pause, Elena's voice softened, almost uncertain. Why didn't you mention it before? Luke shrugged. Didn't know who you were until now. Then his gaze lifted, sharper this time. And even if I had, what would have been the point? The air thickened, weighted with things neither wanted to say, but both knew were sitting right there between them. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. Luke's arms crossed again. Not angry, not forgiving, just holding something tight. Doesn't change anything. For a second, Elena thought about arguing, about explaining, about defending choices she no longer believed in. But the words died, because he was right, at least for now. Luke didn't speak for a while. His eyes drifted, not to her, not to the folder, but somewhere else entirely. A place far away, a life that felt like someone else's. The walls of the apartment faded, replaced by desert sand. The suffocating heat of a military base thousands of miles from home. The constant hum of generators, helicopters, boots on gravel. In that world, Luke had a different uniform, a different purpose. He saw them again, his team, 6 men, 2 women, engineers, mechanics, field operators, all bound by the same unspoken rule: keep things running. because failure meant someone didn't come home. His hands remembered the weight of tools, the grind of repairing machinery under pressure, under fire. He remembered the sound of metal splitting and the sound of silence that followed when comms went dead. But that wasn't the worst. No. The worst was after. The look in his friend's eyes. Jake, 29, father of one, crushed vertebrae, paralyzed from the waist down, medically discharged, sent home to a life that no longer fit him. Luke had visited, sat in Jake's kitchen, watching him fumble with a tablet that wouldn't respond to hands that barely worked anymore. Watching his daughter try and fail to understand why Daddy didn't lift her like before. That day, something broke and something else started. Late nights, sketches, prototypes built from spare parts in a garage that smelled of oil and sawdust, an interface designed to adapt. Not to perfect hands, but to imperfect ones. A touchscreen that learned how you moved, how you tapped, how you failed, and adjusted until failure was no longer the end of the story. It wasn't for money, or patents, or recognition. It was for Jake, and for everyone like him. Back in the present, Luke's gaze refocused. The apartment returned. So did the weight in his chest. He didn't say any of this out loud. He didn't have to. It was written all over his face. The silence stretched again, but this time, it wasn't the awkward kind. It wasn't even angry. It was heavier, sadder. The kind of silence that builds when two people suddenly realize they're standing on opposite sides of something they can't cross. Elena shifted her weight. Her hands, once steady, once made for negotiating, commanding, deciding, now fidgeted uselessly with the hem of her sleeve. Luke stood by the counter, arms folded, shoulders squared, not cold, not cruel, just distant. Mia's voice floated from her bedroom, soft, humming, completely unaware of the fracture that had just split the air. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it. The words wouldn't come, or maybe they didn't exist. "I should go," she finally said. Luke nodded, not as permission, not as dismissal, just acknowledgement. She reached for the doorknob, paused, glanced back. Luke didn't move. For a moment, Elena thought about saying something else, something that might bridge this space, pull it all back together. But there was nothing simple left to say. The door opened. The cool air of the hallway met her face, sharper than it had been when she arrived. As it closed behind her, the latch clicked louder than it should have. Or maybe that was just how it felt. Inside, Luke stayed exactly where he was, outside. Elena stood for 1 second longer than necessary, staring at the closed door, realizing she had no idea what to do next. It started with a headline. At first, just one, small, buried in a tech blog no one outside the industry cared about. Former military engineer claims Vertex Innovations stole assistive technology design. By noon, it was everywhere. Screens flashed, news tickers scrolled, notifications buzzed. Whistleblower reveals patent rejection. Then mysterious product launch. Hero or victim? Local single dad sparks major lawsuit against tech giant. Reporters dug, threads unraveled, photos surfaced, Luke's LinkedIn headshot, screenshots of his original submission, dates, timestamps, rejection letters. None of it painted a flattering picture. The court of public opinion didn't wait for evidence. Cable news anchors leaned in. Voices loaded with just enough outrage to sound authentic. If true, this isn't just corporate greed. This is theft. From a veteran, from a father, from someone trying to make the world better. Social media did the rest. Memes, hashtags, think pieces written by people who'd never heard of adaptive interfaces before yesterday, in boardrooms across the city. Panic metastasized. Lawyers scrambled. PR firms drafted statements designed to sound sincere but admit nothing. And in the middle of it all, Elena sat in her apartment, staring at her libro, watching the story unfold in real time. Her own face, clipped from an old keynote speech, now plastered under words like exploitation and betrayal. Calls poured in. Investors, journalists, her board, the messages blurred together. Damage control. Do not comment. Get ahead of this. Find out how this happened. Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. But she didn't type. Not yet. Because beneath the noise, beneath the chaos, one truth rang louder than anything else. This wasn't supposed to happen, but it had, and now, nothing would ever be the same. The news didn't stay online. It spilled into classrooms, onto playgrounds, into the whispered conversations of kids who heard just enough from their parents, but never quite enough to understand. Mia sat alone on the edge of the school steps, tracing circles in the dirt with her shoe. Her backpack sat unopened, her usual chatter gone. Two girls hovered nearby, older, taller, mean in the way kids could be when they sensed weakness. One crossed her arms. "My mom said your dad's a thief." The other chimed in louder. "Yeah, and that lady who came over, she steals from people." Mia's fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. Her mouth opened, then closed. Words tangled, heavy, too big for someone her size to carry. "That's not true," she whispered. But it came out thin, small, smaller than she felt. The first girl sneered. "Then why's it on TV?" Footsteps crunched against gravel. A teacher called from somewhere, distracted, unaware. The girls walked off, laughing, like it was just another game. Mia sat there, blinking fast. determined not to cry, but her fists stayed clenched. Across town, Luke stood at the kitchen counter, phone in hand, staring at another flood of missed calls. Elena, 3, then 4, then 6. Her name lit up the screen again, vibrating, waiting. His thumb hovered, jaw clenched. Then, swipe, decline airplane mode. The phone went dark. He leaned against the counter, hands pressed flat, head bowed. For a man who spent his life fixing broken things, nothing in this moment felt repairable. The apartment felt smaller than usual, too quiet. From her room, Mia's backpack hit the floor with a heavy thud. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. Not yet. Elena stood in front of apartment 2B. The hallway smelled of something faintly sweet. Maybe someone's dinner. Or maybe laundry detergent. Familiar. Domestic. Completely foreign to her. Her fingers hovered inches from the door, just knock. It should have been simple, 3 inches of wood, a thin layer of paint, that's all that separated her from the man who, only days ago, pulled her out of the dark, and the little girl who, in some strange, unexpected way, had cracked open a corner of her life she didn't even know was closed. But now her hand refused to move. Inside, she could hear something. Footsteps, muffled, a drawer opening, the scrape of a chair, voices, faint, but not words, just life, life continuing. Without her. Her palm brushed against the edge of the door frame, cool, rough, chipped in places. She traced one of the grooves, wondering how many hands had passed over this spot. How many knocks had come before, or didn't. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another email, another demand for statements, explanations, control the narrative. But this wasn't a narrative. This wasn't a press release. This was something messier, more human, and harder. Elena let her hand fall. She stepped back, just half a step, then another. Her heels echoed in the narrow hallway, the sound swallowed quickly by the worn carpet. For a second she looked back, one last glance at the door, then she walked away. The door stayed closed, but her hand still felt the memory of that wood, long after she was gone. Elena sat at her desk, eyes fixed on the screen. Not the headlines, not the emails, not the noise. Lines of code scrolled, access logs, file histories, digital footprints. Her fingers moved faster than her thoughts, cross-referencing timestamps, flagging anomalies, hunting. She wasn't a coder, not exactly, but she had built this company. She knew its bones, where things hid, and where secrets lived. There, a pattern, an unusual spike in file transfers. 3 weeks ago, after hours, from an internal account. She drilled deeper, followed the trail, each click narrowing the funnel, until a name surfaced. Mark Hollis, Director of Technical Operations, a man who had sat 3 seats to her left. in every board meeting for the last 5 years. She pulled his personnel file, opened his email records, payments from an anonymous offshore account, correspondence masked through proxy servers but not masked well enough. Then the final nail, a transfer request sent directly to rival tech. Her chest tightened, fingers hovered. She played the security footage. Late night. Mark entering the server room, a glance over his shoulder. Then, gone. It had always been him. Not a glitch, not bad luck, not fate. It was betrayal, simple, human, ugly. The air in the office felt heavier, quieter, like even the walls were holding their breath. She sat back, palms pressed together, elbows on the desk. Anger was there, but under it, something colder, sharper. Focus. She tapped her phone. Get me legal, she said into the line. Now, and pull Mark's credentials, all of them. Lock him out before he does any more damage. A beat. And after that, I need to make a stop. Her eyes drifted toward the window, toward Fremont, toward a door she hadn't been able to knock on. Until now, the playground was quieter than usual. Recess had ended. Most of the kids were gone, swallowed back into classrooms. But one small figure sat alone, hunched near the edge of the fence. Her knees pulled to her chest. Mia. Elena spotted her from across the parking lot. No hesitation this time. Her heels clicked faster, then slowed, then stopped. Mia's hands fumbled with scraps of paper, torn edges, crumpled corners, a drawing, or what used to be one. Colored lines still visible. A house, a robot, 3 stick figures, 2 taller, 1 smaller, all holding hands. Tears streaked Mia's cheeks, but her face was tight, determined not to let more fall. Elena crouched, quietly, letting her shadow fall before her voice. Hey! Mia flinched, startled, then looked up. Her eyes widened. Miss Elena? Yeah, it's me. For a second, neither spoke. Then Elena's hands moved, gathering pieces, one, then another, laying them flat, smoothing the wrinkles like it might somehow fix more than just the paper. Mia's lower lip trembled. They said, her voice cracked, they said my dad's bad, and you're bad, and that we don't belong here. Elena's breath caught, her hands stilled, pressing down on the torn robot figure. I'm so sorry, Mia, she said quietly. I'm so sorry. A shaky silence followed. Then, Mia's fingers joined hers, picking up the last piece. I worked really hard on this, Mia whispered. I can tell, Elena said softly. It's beautiful. Mia sniffed, wiped her nose on her sleeve. Do you think broken things can be fixed? Her voice was small, honest. heavy in a way only a child's question could be. Elena swallowed, felt something shift in her chest. Yes, she said, no hesitation. I do. Together they stacked the torn pieces, not perfect, not whole, but together. And sometimes that was enough. Luke had come earlier than usual, half day at school, a promise made and kept. From the far edge of the playground he saw them. Mia, crouched on the pavement, her small hands busy gathering torn bits of paper. Next to her, Elena, on her knees, hands moving with the same care, the same patience, as if the pieces were something fragile, something sacred. Luke stayed still, unseen, watching. He saw the way Elena brushed hair from Mia's face, the way she didn't rush, didn't try to fix it with cheap words or empty comfort. No suits, no boardrooms, no armor, just a woman sitting in the dirt, helping a little girl put her world back together one scrap at a time. Mia glanced up, spotted him first. "Daddy," she called, voice softer than usual, but steady. Luke stepped forward, slower than he meant to. Mia stood, wiping her hands on her jacket. She looked between them, then said, with the absolute matter-of-fact certainty only children could carry, "Miss Elena came back because broken things can be fixed." Her words hit harder than anything he'd read, anything he'd heard, all week. Luke met Elena's eyes. For a second, neither looked away, not anger, not blame, just something quieter, more complicated. Elena stood, dusted her knees, hands still holding the tape together, drawing. I didn't know if I should come," she admitted. Her voice wasn't polished, wasn't perfect, it was real. Luke nodded. Not quite forgiveness, not yet. But something was different. Something had shifted. And maybe, just maybe, the door wasn't locked anymore. The kitchen table wasn't made for this. Not for contracts, not for signatures that would change the direction of two lives. Maybe more. But here they were. Papers spread out between two mugs of coffee, and a plate of chocolate chip cookies Mia had insisted be part of the negotiation. Luke sat back, arms crossed, reading every line carefully, not because he didn't trust her, but because trust now meant reading every word. Elena didn't rush him. She sat quiet, steady, a different kind of stillness than before, not waiting for him to catch up, just waiting. The document was simple. By design, a co-development agreement, joint ownership, equal rights, full transparency, no loopholes, no corporate fine print. Luke's thumb ran along the edge of the paper. His eyes lifted, meeting hers. "You're sure about this?" he asked. Not suspicion, just clarity. "I am," Elena answered. No strings, no tricks, just what it should have been from the start. A beat passed, then a nod. Okay. He reached for the pen, signed his name. Slow, deliberate. A signature that once went on field reports, maintenance logs, discharge papers, now on something that built, not destroyed. Elena slid the paper closer, signed hers next, same pen, same weight. When it was done, neither said anything right away. It wasn't the kind of moment that needed noise. From the living room, Mia's voice floated in. Does this mean we're business partners now? Luke chuckled. The first real laugh in days. Something like that, he said. Elena smiled, but softer, different, because this wasn't just a contract. This was something new, something that looked suspiciously like a beginning. The courtyard wasn't much. A cracked concrete square, a few benches worn smooth by time, flower pots that hadn't seen flowers in years. But today, it was something else entirely. A folding table stood in the center. On top, the prototype. Sleek, simple wires tucked, sensors polished. A tablet screen glowing softly, waiting. Neighbors gathered, slowly at first, then more. Mr. Patel from 1C, the young couple from 3A, Mrs. Jenkins with her walker, curious, leaning on her cane. Luke stood behind the table, one hand steadying the device, the other adjusting settings, focused, calm. Elena stood next to him, hands clasped, her scanning the faces, feeling something in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. Not nerves. Hope. All right, Luke said, his voice carried. Let's show you what this does. Mia stepped forward, holding a remote modified with oversized buttons. Her fingers, small but confident, pressed one. The tablet blinked. A cursor floated, then shifted, responding not to fine motor movements but to the broader, clumsier ones most devices ignored. Luke demonstrated how it learned, how it adapted, how, over time, it stopped punishing users for what their hands couldn't do and started listening to how their hands actually worked. A man in a wheelchair tried next. His smile grew wider with every tap that landed right, every gesture that didn't miss. Then Mrs. Jenkins. Her hands shook. The tablet didn't care. It adjusted, shifted, waited. When she completed a simple puzzle on the screen, the crowd clapped, first polite, then louder, real. Mia jumped, grinning. It works! It really works! Luke's hand found Elena's, without thinking. She didn't pull away, a voice from the crowd. About time someone built something like this. Elena nodded, not as a CEO, not as anything else, just as someone who finally understood what it meant to build something that mattered. The camera pulled back, past the courtyard, past the table now surrounded by neighbors still laughing, still testing, still touching something that felt like the future, up toward the familiar hallway, worn but different now. The elevator door stood in frame, clean, repaired. A fresh coat of silver paint gleamed under the flickering hallway light. On the metal, a new sign. Inspected, certified, safe. Someone had wiped away the scratches, smoothed the dents. The doors closed, not with a groan, but a quiet, confident click. Beneath the stairwell, something else. A small patch of dirt that used to be just dirt. Now, a sapling stood there, thin, fragile, but stubborn. Its leaves shimmered in the breeze, catching what sunlight managed to slip between the buildings. A tiny wooden sign stuck in the soil, written in a child's uneven handwriting, painted bright. Mia's tree, for fixing broken things. The camera lingered, long enough to catch Luke stepping out the front door, toolbox in one hand, Mia's backpack in the other. He paused, glanced at the tree, adjusted the straps, then smiled. Behind him, Elena emerged, not rushed, not distracted, a coffee in one hand. Her other hand brushed Mia's curls into place as the little girl skipped ahead, tracing her fingers along the brick wall like it was a path only she could see. They walked together, the kind of together that didn't need defining. The shot widened, beyond the building, beyond the street. The city stretched out, messy, imperfect, alive, full of doors, some open, some not, some waiting for someone, anyone, to figure out how to force them wide again. But for this door, this building, this family, it wasn't locked anymore, and maybe it never would be again. The screen faded, then a final image. The tree, still standing, still growing. The camera lingers, just for a moment longer. On that little sapling, still standing beneath the stairwell. Its leaves catch the wind, tiny, stubborn, but growing anyway. Funny how something so small can mean so much. A tree that wasn't here before, a family that didn't exist before, a reminder that broken things aren't always meant to be thrown away. Sometimes they're meant to be fixed, grown, and if you're lucky, shared. Thank you for spending this time with me, for listening to this story. If it left you with something, maybe a little hope, maybe a little warmth, consider liking the video or subscribing. It helps this channel grow, like that tree, and maybe, just maybe, we'll meet again for another story.